Hey guys, it's Will here, welcome back to the channel. Tonight going with part 2 of my, what is probably going to be a 3-part series looking at Phoenix Rising, the Psychic Awakening, the first book from the Psychic Awakening, and specifically looking at the Eldar powers, or the Eldar abilities, various things the Eldar get from this. So tonight we're going to be looking at the new Runes of Fortune discipline. Now this is a very interesting psychic discipline because it doesn't replace the main powers you get to choose. Instead, you get 6 powers that replace Smite. So the first time you've ever had the chance to replace Smite, so that in itself is interesting. And what I'll have a look at is which powers of these are actually good, what would you use them for, are any of them worth taking, or is it better to just stick with Smite? Eldar obviously have a lot of psychers, so I think what you could quite easily do is keep Smite on a few of them and pick a few choice options from here. But anyway, I'm going to go through all 6 of them, and we're starting off with Fateful Deliverance. Now, like a lot of these powers, this is a really easy cast. It's only a 4+ to cast, and essentially you pick a friendly craft world unit within 6 inches of the guy casting it, and yeah, they get in the following turn they can either re-roll a single hit, wound, or save roll. So the obvious choices for this would be things with a low number but potentially high power attacks. So the first thing that comes to mind is the Fire Prism. You know, you've got that single shot potentially. May not always be the optimal to use, but if you're going to use it, then yeah, the single shot, you can get the re-roll on that, whether it's the re-roll to hit or, you know, the re-roll to wound if you've hit and don't want to waste it. That's the obvious choice. Other things that might come in handy would be like perhaps a Wraith Knight with a very powerful attack, or a unit that you just want to pass a very reliable save on. Obviously it doesn't do as much as some of the powers from the Farseer discipline that allow you to reroll all hits or reroll all failed wounds. But yeah, certainly got some potential uses in limited scenarios. Perhaps if you've already used all your other buff spells and you just want to get an extra buff out there, might be handy. But I think you might overall get more damage out of Smite, depending on what's in your list. Next up, we've got Witch Strike. Now this could possibly be the worst psychic power that Eldar have access to. Essentially, it's +2 damage to the melee weapons of the psyker casting it. Now, to my knowledge, there is no psyker in the Eldar Codex that needs to be anywhere near close combat. Yes, Witchblades do wound on a 2+, and yes, they do. I think the Singing Spear has multiple damage, but just know the guys wielding them do not want to be in combat. They're like universally toughness 3 unless they're riding a bike. Go up to a mighty toughness of 4. Relatively low number of wounds and attacks. These guys should be behind the lines casting powers. They shouldn't be up in the fight. Taking this is going to make you want to get your Psyker into a fight, and that's how you lose your Psyker. These weapons don't even have an armor piercing characteristic, so they'll be bouncing off most of the time anyway, so yeah, I cannot see myself ever taking that one. Then we've got Ghostwalk. Now this is probably my top pick. It's only a 6 to cast, so relatively low, although one of the higher ones of these. And you basically pick a unit within, let me just double check, 6 inches, so you do have to get quite close. And that unit can add 2 to its charge rolls until the next psychic phase. So yeah, there's a few units and a few scenarios that could benefit this, whether you've got a unit trying to pull off a really long bomb charge, like Shining Spears going from a distance that you just did not anticipate. I mean, when you add this to the Shining Spear Exarch ability that gives them +1, and then the Biltan power that stratagem that gives them +2 to charge, you can add 5 inches to your charge. And that works whether they've moved or whether they've come in from reserve. So spears are a good obvious choice for this, or any unit coming in off reserve obviously turns that 9-inch charge to a 7-inch charge, going down to a 5 if you use Court of the Young King, which also gives you reroll ones to hit in the first round of combat, which is nice. So if you've got a melee unit in your army, this is a good power to have. Now, obviously, it's a 6-inch range, and Psychic is after movement, so you're going to want a Psyker who is moving up the board with them. And I was originally thinking, you know, Farseer or Warlock on a jet bike, or even just a Sacrificial Warlock who deep strikes down with them. Risky business, not sure you really want to spend the CP on that. But I was watching D6 Evolution's review of this, and they made a very good point. You can put this on a Hemlock, because it replaces Smite. Hemlock can have it. Your Hemlock Wraith Fighter is obviously going to be moving up the board anyway, because it can't not, it's a flyer. So the unit comes down within 6 of the Hemlock, which has a decent sized base. And yeah, it can do this for you. So yeah, I think this could be a fun one to try out, particularly if you like your Aspect Warriors, gone for a more melee focused list. Even what they called, so Wraith Blades, they benefit nicely from this as well. So yeah, probably my top pick there. Then we've got Crushing Orb, which is a bit meh. It's 18-inch range, only a 4 to cast. It's really easy to do, but there's only one easier than Smite. Pick a character within 18, and you roll 3 dice, and you do a mortal wound for every 5 or 6. So you're going to do 1 to 3, averaging out at 1 mortal wound, potentially doing none. It is nice that you can pick your target and that it picks out characters, but just the amount of damage you're going to do, you can't spam it. You're going to do 1 mortal wound to a character. It's going to be quite situational. You're going to need to be targeting a character who's already damaged. I suppose if you've got a lot of Pathfinders in your army, a lot of Rangers, stuff that can pick out characters, might be nice just to finish them off. But it's going to rarely come up as being useful. And again, it's a slightly shorter range from Eldar characters that don't really want to get that close. Now, the next one could be a bit controversial, Focus Will, which is what I say to myself when I'm losing focus. Ba-dum, yeah, you guys don't come here for the jokes. So it's Warp Charge 6, and you pick another Craftworld Psyker within 6, so nothing to say you can't do this on yourself. And it says, word for word, until the end of this phase, when a Deny the Witch test is taken for that model, add 2 to the total. Okay, +2 to Deny the Witch, that's could be handy depending on your meta if you're facing a lot of Psykers. But until the end of this phase, so that's your own Psychic phase, why on earth are you taking a Deny the Witch in your opponent's in your own Psychic phase? That doesn't make sense. I cannot see the rules as written how this power has any benefit at all. And the only thing I can think is it must be a misprint, and that's going to get FAQ'd. Either it's until the end of your opponent's Psychic phase, or it's meant to affect casting and denies. I think until the end of your opponent's next Psychic phase is the most logical reading of it. That is a power then that is potentially useful depending on your meta. You've got your Warlock who has this power and casts it on a nearby Farseer, and then your Farseer is better at dispelling. Great if you're up against Magnus the Red. Farseer has 2 dispels and a dice reroll, adding +2 to that, +2 to deny. That could be really good. Obviously, if you play against a lot of Tau and Necrons, it's not going to have any use at all. But rules as written, this needs FAQing, because unless I'm reading this wrong, this does nothing. And I've read through this 3 or 4 times to check I hadn't got this wrong. So I'm going to assume this must be getting an FAQ pretty soon. Final one's an interesting one, Impaired Senses. You pick an enemy unit within 18 inches of the Psyker that's visible, and until your next Psychic phase, that unit can only target the closest visible enemy unit unless the target is within 18 inches. Now, that has some interesting permutations. The obvious thing is you want to use this to make them target something nearby, but you kind of have to keep the rest of your force back, because being within 18 inches just, gets rid of that. So you have to play this one a bit clever. Also, your Psyker has to be within that 18 inches to pull this off. So you're going to want really to put this on a Psyker who is moving up a little bit, but perhaps not getting too close, so he's still screened. Obviously, don't put this one on a Hemlock, because they'll just shoot the hemlock down. You know, you want this on like a warlock or a farseer because being a character protects him. And then the target unit, the unit you're going to put this on, so it needs to be a unit with some good shooting, but that has some sort of weakness. So say you're going to have something with a low number of shots, and then you put this, put like a horde unit, like a big 20-man blob of Guardians in front of a las cannon Devastator squad. Well, that las cannon Devastator squad now can't target your fire prisms and your big stuff, your Wraith Knights, and that. It's got to target that 20-man blob of Guardians, and great, you're going to kill 4 of them if you roll everything as a hit. Or you put this on like a unit that has got loads of DACA, like perfect example, Orc Shooter Boys. Put this on target Orc Shooter Boys with this, and keep the closest model as something with a really good armor save and a high toughness. Wraith Blades, Wraith Knight, you know, basically make that unit waste its shooting on something it can't kill. But you do have to really play around this. You can protect a lot of your army from shooting with this if you play it smart, and you're going to have to be a really good player to make this work. So yeah, rolling down them, how I would rank them in order from 1 to 6. And this is assuming that Focus Will gets FAQ'd to actually do what I think it should do, rather than doing absolutely nothing. Number 6, Witch Strike, is just bad. It makes you do something stupid. You just don't want your Psychers in combat with Eldar. End of. Fateful Deliverance could be useful in very specific circumstances. But it's a little bit obsolete because of all the other ways to gain rerolls in the book. And number 4, Crushing Orb. Again, limited use, but there are situations I can see that benefited in. Now, number 3 is Focus Will. Obviously, if this doesn't get FAQ'd, this gets bumped down to the bottom because it does nothing. But if it gets FAQ'd to allow it to boost your Deny the Witches in your opponent's psychic phase, it depends a bit on the meta whether it's useful, but in the right meta, with the right Farseer picked to benefit from it, then yeah, this could do a lot. Impaired Senses at number 2, it's potentially really strong, but you need to be so clever with how you play it. I'm thinking maybe Shining Spears, big unit of Shining Spears leading the charge while the rest of your force is standing back and shooting, you know, at just over 18 inches. You want to stick Protect on them, you want to be prepared to do lightning fast reactions, and you want to stick Fortune on them, so they're just really tough to kill, and then make your opponent waste all his shooting on them. Situational, requires a lot of skill to do, but could be really powerful. And then finally Ghost Walk, it's just the most obvious how you're going to use it, and it's going to have potentially a lot of benefit for the right unit, you know, making what would have been a very difficult charge into a much more manageable charge, can get one of your hard-hitting melee units into the right place at the right time. So yeah, there you go, that's my thoughts on that. If you have any other thoughts on this, you know, let me know what you think. Have I missed something? Is there something I'm missing with what Focus Will is supposed to actually do? Because at the moment I'm not seeing it. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you all again soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.